The Big 12 and the ACC are actually sticking up for themselves against the Big 10 and the SEC. And they're using the same bargaining chip that I told you guys about just last week. They're not going to let the Power 2 just ram through these 4 auto bids like I think most of us assumed that they would. The question is, of course, will it work? Will that work? Let's find out. Let's find out, friends. Okay, so here I'm going to read you some excerpts from Ross Dellinger's article. A lot of this is coming from ACC meetings, which just happened this week. They have a very defiant attitude, man. There are some quotes. There are some bars, as the kids would say. There are some bars to come out of the mouths of ACC coaches and administrators. I got to hand it to them. I am impressed. I am impressed. I've never been all that impressed with Jim Phillips and company, but the ACC, I like what you're doing here. So talking about the playoff structure, Dellinger says the divide among the 4 leagues does not exist in the number of teams. There is consensus in moving from 12 to 16. Okay, you got that? Everybody get 14 out of your head. Looks like everybody's cool with moving to 16. However, Dellinger says the rub is with the number of automatic qualifying spots for each conference. Leaders at the Big 12 and ACC want more than just 2 automatic spots. Okay, that's where it starts to get spicy, man. I came on and told you, like, hey, two spots might be something you'd want to sign up for. Now, I get why the ACC would be more defiant about this right now, because they just had a year where Miami would certainly argue they should have had 3 teams in the playoff. And, you know, between like Clemson, Miami, Georgia Tech, Florida State, Louisville, like they've got a pretty good crop of schools this year. Perhaps you could argue that they'll be in the running for 3 bids this season as well. For the Big 12, unfortunately, even if this were just 1 through 16, you would have had just 1 bid last year because BYU finished 17th in the college football playoff rankings, just outside that final spot. Dellinger goes on to say, leaders at the Big 12 and the ACC want more than just 2 automatic spots. Negotiations among the 4 power conference commissioners have produced disagreement. Discord lingers over the amount of automatic qualifiers for each conference. Word from ACC media days on all of this. We got one athletic director. Didn't put his name to this. A lot of the coaches did, so credit to the coaches. We'll get to their quotes in a second. But, quote, no one likes it, says one athletic director. Well, now that is a pretty obvious quote. Like, yes, of course, nobody in the Big 12 or the ACC is going to like the idea of 4 automatic bids for the Big 10 and the SEC every single year. I mean, virtually nobody that's not a Big 10 or an SEC fan likes the idea of that. And I would imagine even that wouldn't pull at 100% in the Big 10 or the SEC, right? It's not an incredibly popular idea. It's just one that we all assumed would be rammed through because, well, it could be. Dellinger says coaches spoke against it, recommending to athletic administrators that they push for the ACC to get 3 automatic qualifiers. 3. And the coaches were not shy about saying this publicly with their name slapped on it. This is where you know the ACC is ready for a fight. They are ready for a fight. Again, I will give him credit. I always took Jim Phillips as being kind of passive, but everybody under him seems to be ready. This is equivalent of squaring up, man. They've got the Dukes up. Quote, we are fighting for our spots, NC State head coach Dave Doran told Yahoo Sports. We believe we deserve 3 automatic qualifiers as a minimum. As a minimum. How about that? Dave Doran, who, by the way, did not have a very good year last year, but Dave Doran, who has been a pretty good coach at NC State, says, why stop at 3? Why stop at 3? We need at least 3 automatic spots. That is the minimum that we should get to satisfy us right now. Boy, we expanded to 18. We expanded to 20. Dave Doran thinks the ACC might even need 4. Here's Pat Narduzzi. Quote, I think you should earn your way in. It comes down to the image of the Big 10 and SEC and where they are, and there's a lack of respect for the ACC. I don't like it. Pat Narduzzi, not afraid. I mean, he's certainly a crusty guy. I can imagine that he's not thrilled about this. Actually, I said it was all coaches. Here is North Carolina AD Bubba Cunningham. My apologies to Bubba Cunningham at North Carolina. He's got a lot on his plate right now, if you've been paying attention to the Bill Belichick headlines lately. But Bubba Cunningham says, quote, I don't understand why you'd ask for a guaranteed spot other than 1 automatic for conference champions. again, to me, the significance of this is not even so much in what they are saying, but that it's not all just anonymous coach, anonymous athletic director. They are willing to put their name behind it, gearing up for a public fight on this. Let's drag this through the mud as much as we can. Maybe some of this, if you want to be really cynical, would be saying it's kind of the equivalent in politics where they're like, well, we don't have the votes, we know to stop this, but we're going to make sure it goes to a vote so that you have to put your name behind it. You have to publicly put your name behind it. Publicly, Greg Sankey, say something about it, talk more about it publicly, try to justify this more so that you can't just kind of weasel your way through making this happen and let everybody forget. We're going to make it a big thing. So public opinion, which we know is already kind of behind us, will continue to hit you guys and your credibility will take hits and we'll just make it a mess for you. It could just be that as the best case scenario. We shall see. But I mean, the best quote is obviously Dave Doran saying 3 automatic qualifiers as a minimum is great. I mean, look, I don't care whatever. Again, the justification last year, they were very close. The ACC was very close to landing 3 in the playoff anyway, as it is. If it were going to 16, Miami would have been in. You would have had a third. They would have had 3 in there. So saying they deserve a minimum of 3 actually is not that crazy based on what happened last year. So if the ACC wants to posture like that, go do your thing. Go do your thing. I just thought, now, if I'm the Big 12 or the ACC, I had thought that there would be some real risk here. I do want to talk about that. Some risk in pushing too hard on this, and the Big 10 and the SEC just saying, well, forget you guys. Like, what, Dave Doran, what do I care about you? You won like 5 games last year. You lost your best player to Texas A&M. Why do I care about you being yappy and saying you deserve at least 3 bids? We're just going to go do our own thing. We'll take our ball and go home. But the tides around all of this and the presidential commission and Cody Campbell getting so involved, I just feel the energy, the vibe shift right now is a little bit more in favor of the Big 12 and ACC pushing on this and feeling more emboldened to push on this, okay? Here's more from Dellinger. Big 12 and ACC officials are expected to propose alternate models to the Big 10 and SEC, the 2 conferences that hold the authority. Contacted by Yahoo Sports on Wednesday, Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark declined comment on any new proposals. Meanwhile, some here at ACC spring meetings expressed their frustration over any format that predetermines automatic qualifiers. The ACC and Big 12. Now, here's a key, okay? It's not just the ACC and Big 12 here. The ACC and Big 12 are not alone in their pushback to the format. Notre Dame athletic director Pete Bavacqua, one of 11 members of the College Football Playoff Governance Board, has spoken against the format within meetings. Notre Dame's against it, guys. Notre Dame hates it. Big 12 hates it. ACC hates it. General population hates it. You know who like it. It is just the Big 10 and the SEC. That is it. Nobody else likes this idea at all. Nobody else likes this idea at all. Bavacqua also declined comment. So Yormark, Bavacqua trying to be a little bit more quiet. It would probably be different if you had like Big 12 meetings going on right now and a bunch of people around there. I'd imagine some coaches, some people would probably want to pop off. A little bit different attitude from those corners. SMU head coach Rhett Lashley used a basketball analogy, okay, citing the SEC's record of 14 teams in the NCAA tournament this past year. Quote, if we guaranteed spots based on the past, just look at basketball the last 5 years. 6 years ago or so, the SEC gets 3 or 4 teams in. And now this year they set a record. But if this year's NCAA tournament was predicted on 5 years ago, 10 of their schools would have been left out. It's kind of hard to limit the future based on the past. I mean, that's pretty simple logic. If you were doing this in any way from scratch, that makes a lot of sense. And it seems pretty ridiculous to just predetermine all of these spots like that. It is hard to argue with that if you are Rhett Lashley. Now, another risk here, in addition to just the Big 10 or the SEC saying, we'll take our ball and go home, is you also do risk them saying, okay, fine, we'll just abandon this, rank everybody 1 through 16, and we'll see who gets in. I mean, that's not going to be good news for the group of 5. I would still say last year was a very good year for the ACC in terms of just sheer numbers trying to get somebody into the playoff. You got to be careful what you wish for, though. You got to be careful what you wish for. That it could tilt the opposite way very quickly where you don't wind up with the strength of SMU, Clemson, Miami all being right there, and you could be one bordering on maybe two, like the Big 12 pretty quickly if you are the ACC. So I do think there is some inherent risk in that, and that's why I still stand by and told you, like, in a lot of ways, I do genuinely feel like signing on the dotted line, just taking your two bids might be the best way to go. Okay. Because the SEC and Big Ten do appear to have the cards now, but I will use that more in the sense of appear to have all the cards and all the leverage. That could be changing here. That could be changing if legitimate political pressure and public backlash can make a difference. Let me show you an example of this. Okay. Here is something that happened just this week. Let's bring up this tweet from a politician, not something that I will do very often here on the show, but Brendan Boyle, he quote tweeted Ross Dellinger talking about the Big Ten SEC pushing for their 4 automatic bids. And he said, the next time the Big Ten or SEC wants to meet with me about NIL, they better be prepared to first explain to me how they justify trying to rig the college football playoff. And then he hits him with the hashtag, man. Look at the hashtag, guys. Hashtag greed with a capital G. A capital G. It's a congressman from Pennsylvania. A capital G greed from Congressman Brendan Boyle. And that was actually how Dellinger led his article, was talking about that comment. So, guys, there is legitimate pressure coming at the SEC and Big Ten and just everybody in the college sports world about how things are being done. And it's not all like the status quo right now is what's best for the SEC and Big Ten. The more that outside entities start to get involved and the ACC starts to put public pressure and you're forced to defend what is honestly kind of an undefendable decision here to go with 4 auto bids for each conference, the more public pressure and perhaps political pressure will start to build. And now the Big 12 has a big seat at the table with Cody Campbell being a co-chair of this presidential commission. And we'll talk more about this. Nick Saban seems trying to get rid of that almost at this point. Even if he does, I mean, Cody Campbell's a guy that he's got a line to President Trump. Full stop. Like, that is there. Obviously, so does Nick Saban. But this is a guy with influence. He's a billionaire, speaks the language of the president. President seems to be interested here if he's interested in creating a committee. Big 12's got some influence. Cody Campbell gets mentioned in this Dellinger article. It says, in fact, Cody Campbell, the leader of a newly minted and yet to be announced presidential commission, is a Big 12 supporter and sits on the league's alumni council. The billionaire businessman is the chair of the Texas Tech Board of Regents, a friend to your Mark, and has a direct line to President Donald Trump. So don't take my word for it. Ross Dellinger, the best reporter in college sports right now, says that he's got a direct line to President Donald Trump. That's legitimate influence for the Big 12. So all the big guns are coming out here. And it does feel to me like it's kind of this moment of, I said earlier, like a we're not going to take it moment, but also like everybody realizes this is a big, important crescendo everything is building to here. Like, what are we going to allow the Big Ten and the SEC to do? And how much toothpaste will they be pushing out of a tube here if they do the auto bids to the college football playoff? And if we let Nick Saban move forward with his idea of wanting to cut this off at only 40 teams, how much toothpaste is going to come out of the tube that can't be put back? We need to speak up. We can't let this happen. And we seem to have an administration right now in the White House that has interest in taking on some projects of this ilk. So go for it. That's really the vibe that I'm getting right now. How about this? This is another paragraph from the Dellinger story. Whether Campbell or the commission gets involved, this is Cody Campbell, whether Cody Campbell or the commission get involved in the playoff discussions remains unclear. One source close to Campbell told Yahoo Sports he is not in favor of the Big Ten and SEC's proposed format. I mean, of course he's not. But the fact that it's even brought up, whether Cody Campbell gets involved in the playoff discussions remains unclear. Cody Campbell apparently maybe now has enough influence to get involved in the playoff discussions. Guys, this is a very important figure. This is not, I know he's bankrolling Texas Tech, and you might have to separate your feelings about that versus what he can do for the sake of the league and schools in the Big 12. But it's a very important guy, man. Very important guy with some real influence. Now, there's some other details here. I don't find these to be as important to the big picture today, but if you are curious, the leverage piece of this, I mentioned the Big 12 and the ACC are using the leverage that I said they should use. That leverage is what happens this year for the playoff. And Dellinger says, if an agreement is reached on a format for 2026 and beyond, it may pave the way to move what's termed a straight seeding format for the 2025 playoff. So what he's saying there is, if the Big 12 and the ACC actually force some change for the 2026 and beyond playoff, it would come at the expense of, okay, guys, fine, then you don't get your automatic buys this year in the 2025 playoff. We're just going to straight seed it in the top 4 seeds, get the buys, which is a very much worthwhile negotiation if you can do it. If you can pull it off for the Big 12 or the ACC, if that gets you an extra auto bid, if that gets the Big 12 or Big 10 and SEC to get rid of their auto bids, whatever it might be, that's a worthwhile bargaining chip and one that you should be using theoretically. So I like that. There's also a lot of talk about how they would have to structure things. Playoff would have to change. You'd have at 16, you'd have play-in games, 13 v 16, 14 v 15. That would take place the week of Army-Navy. That would set up who's then in the playoff. You'd have double buys for the top seeds. A lot of structural stuff there. But to me, that's not nearly the most interesting piece of all of this. So anyway, guys, we haven't even gotten to the Nick Saban part of this yet. Okay, we haven't even gotten to the Nick Saban part of this yet.